It was the middle of winter in upstate New York when 16-year-old Emily found herself home alone for the first time in weeks. Her parents had gone out to a late dinner with some family friends, and her younger brother was at a sleepover. Emily didn't mind, in fact, she welcomed the silence. Snowflakes fell heavily outside, coating the neighborhood in thick, glowing white. She made herself hot chocolate, curled up on the couch, and scrolled through her phone while the TV murmured faintly in the background. Around 10:30 p.m., the snowstorm intensified, rattling against the windows and occasionally muffling the sound of passing cars. Emily was just about to text her best friend when she heard something that cut through the cozy atmosphere, the distinct sound of footsteps on the porch. She froze. Her parents weren't due back for another hour at least. Forcing herself to stand, she tiptoed toward the front window, carefully pulling the curtain back just enough to peek outside. At first, all she saw was the swirling snow under the dim yellow glow of the streetlight. But then, her stomach dropped. A man in a dark coat was standing at the edge of the porch, half hidden by shadows. His back was turned as though he were surveying the street, but the way he lingered made Emily's pulse quicken. She told herself it was probably just a neighbor caught in the storm, maybe trying to figure out which house belonged to a friend. But something about the way he stood there, so still, so deliberate, didn't feel right. She reached for her phone, intending to call her mom, when the porch boards creaked again. Slowly, the man turned his head, and Emily realized he was wearing a ski mask. Her breath caught. She stumbled backward, nearly dropping her phone. He was staring directly at the window, directly at her. For a moment, neither of them moved, as though the glass between them was the only thing holding back something terrible. Emily darted into the kitchen and flicked off the lights, hoping the sudden darkness would make it harder for him to see inside. Heart hammering, she crouched behind the counter, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. As the operator answered, Emily whispered what was happening, barely daring to breathe. Then came the sound she dreaded most, the squeak of the front doorknob being tested. The operator calmly told her to stay hidden, that officers were on their way, but Emily couldn't stop shaking. The man jiggled the knob harder, then pounded against the door with his fist. The thunderous knocks echoed through the house, making Emily clamp her hand over her mouth to stifle a cry. Minutes felt like hours. The masked man circled around the side of the house, his boots crunching in the snow. Emily crawled toward the back door, praying it was locked. Just as she reached it, she heard the sound of the sliding glass door rattling. He was trying to get in from the back now. "Stay with me, officers are 3 minutes away," the operator repeated in her ear, her calm voice a fragile lifeline in the storm of Emily's terror. Suddenly, the sound of distant sirens cut through the storm. Red and blue lights soon flashed against the snowbanks, and Emily dared to peek out the kitchen window. The masked man bolted across the yard, disappearing into the woods as 2 police cars pulled into the driveway. When her parents arrived shortly after, Emily was still sobbing, unable to shake the image of that masked face watching her from the porch. The police combed the area but found only footprints that vanished into the trees. They told her it was likely a burglar targeting empty homes in the storm, but Emily couldn't forget the feeling that he had been waiting for her, watching her, before making his move. For weeks afterward, she refused to stay home alone. Every creak of the house at night sent her into a panic. And though the snow eventually melted, the memory of that figure in the ski mask never left her. It was a reminder that sometimes, the most disturbing encounters don't happen on dark roads or abandoned buildings, they happen on your own front porch, when you least expect it. It was a hot summer evening in Texas when Jason, a 19-year-old college freshman, agreed to watch his parents' house while they went away for the weekend. He loved the idea of having the place to himself, no siblings, no nagging, just him, the AC, and a stack of video games. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of place where people left their doors unlocked during the day. Jason wasn't worried about anything. But by midnight, he would regret ever agreeing to stay alone. He had just settled in the living room with a cold drink when he noticed something odd outside. Across the street, a street lamp flickered, buzzing like a dying light bulb. Beneath its weak glow stood a man. At first, Jason thought maybe it was just a neighbor taking a late-night walk, but the man didn't move. He just stood there, staring toward Jason's house. Jason squinted, trying to get a better look. The man wore a loose hoodie despite the blistering heat, the hood pulled low over his face. A chill ran down Jason's spine. He told himself it was nothing, probably some guy passing through, but even after 20 minutes, the man was still there, frozen like a statue. Finally, Jason drew the curtains, forcing himself to ignore it. He tried focusing on his game, but his mind kept drifting back to the figure. An hour later, he dared to peek out again, expecting the man to be gone. Instead, his stomach dropped. The figure was closer now, standing directly at the end of his driveway. Jason's pulse spiked. He quickly locked the front door and checked the back, double-bolting everything he could. His parents' house had big glass windows, and he suddenly felt exposed, like the man could see every move he made. Around 1 a.m., Jason heard a soft noise. Like the crunch of gravel on the side of the house. He froze, muting the TV. The sound came again, heavier this time, as if someone was walking alongside the wall. Slowly, Jason tiptoed into the kitchen, clutching a kitchen knife he had grabbed from the counter. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator, and yet he swore he could feel someone moving just outside. Then, clear as day, came the sound of the backyard gate creaking open. Jason's throat went dry. He thought about calling the police but didn't want to sound paranoid if it turned out to be nothing. He peeked through the blinds above the kitchen sink, and nearly dropped the knife. The man was standing in the yard now, just a few feet from the back door. His hood was still up, but Jason could see the faint outline of his mouth curled into a grin. The man lifted a hand slowly and waved. Not a friendly wave, more like a mocking one, as if to say, "I know you're watching." Jason stumbled back, finally fumbling for his phone. He dialed 911, his voice shaking as he whispered to the operator what was happening. She told him to lock himself in a room and wait for officers. Jason ran upstairs, barricading himself in his bedroom with a dresser against the door. Downstairs, he could hear the faint tapping of fingers on glass, like someone dragging their hand across the sliding door. Tap. 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 Jason pressed himself against the wall, phone clutched tight, whispering to the operator that the man was trying to get inside. The tapping stopped, and for a terrifying moment, the house was silent again. Jason strained his ears, barely breathing. Then came a sudden, violent slam against the back door, so loud it rattled the glass. Jason nearly dropped his phone as the operator urged him to stay calm, reminding him help was on the way. Minutes later, flashing red and blue lights cut through his window blinds. Jason didn't dare move until he heard heavy footsteps and voices outside. When police searched the yard, the man was gone. All they found were footprints circling the house and smudged handprints across the glass door. The officers told Jason it was probably someone casing homes, maybe looking for an easy target. But Jason couldn't shake the image of that grin in the dark, the way the stranger had stood outside for hours just watching. He didn't sleep a second that night, and when his parents returned, he begged never to be left alone in the house again. The police never caught the man. And sometimes, late at night, Jason swears he still hears the faint tapping on the glass. Samantha was only 13 the first time she realized that being home alone could be terrifying. It was a Friday evening in Ohio, and her parents had gone out to dinner. She didn't mind, she had pizza, her favorite TV shows lined up, and the thrill of independence that only comes when you're young and the house is quiet. The sun had just set, painting the sky purple, and the neighborhood outside looked calm and safe. By 9 p.m., Samantha was in the living room scrolling through her phone, the TV buzzing in the background, when the house phone rang. Hardly anyone used the landline anymore, and for a second she thought it must be her parents calling to check in. She picked it up, but the voice on the other end wasn't her mom or dad. "Hello, little girl," the man's voice whispered. Her stomach dropped. It wasn't playful. It wasn't familiar. It was low, rasping, and full of something she couldn't explain but instantly feared. Samantha froze. "Who is this?" she asked, trying to sound brave, but her voice cracked. The line went dead. Her hands shook as she set the phone back down. She told herself it was probably a wrong number or some dumb prank, and she tried to laugh it off. But minutes later, the phone rang again. This time she didn't answer. She let it ring and ring until it stopped. Then it rang again. And again. Finally, she couldn't take it and picked up, her heart thudding in her ears. "Don't hang up on me this time," the voice said. "I like watching you." Samantha dropped the phone and stumbled backward. Watching her. She whipped around toward the windows, the blinds, the sliding glass door that led to the backyard. All the lights inside the house suddenly felt like spotlights, making her visible from every angle. She rushed to close the blinds, yanking them down with trembling hands, convinced someone was outside in the dark. The phone rang once more. Samantha didn't answer this time. She ran upstairs, clutching her cell phone, and locked herself in her bedroom. She dialed her mom's number, but it went straight to voicemail. Her dad's phone, too. Panic rose in her chest. Then, from her bedroom window, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Across the street, just barely visible in the shadows of the neighbor's yard, was a figure. A man, standing still, facing her house. She couldn't see his face, but she didn't need to. She knew. He was the one calling. Samantha shut the blinds so fast the cord tangled. She dialed 911, whispering frantically to the dispatcher that someone was outside, that they were calling her and saying things no stranger should know. The operator stayed calm, telling her to stay on the line and keep quiet until officers arrived. Downstairs, the house phone rang again. The shrill sound echoed through the silent house. Samantha covered her ears, shaking, trying not to scream. Then she heard something worse than the ringing. The back door creaked. She knew she had locked it earlier, but now, she swore she heard it being nudged open. Slow. Careful. Someone was testing the lock. Her breathing grew shallow. She could hear footsteps outside now, crunching softly in the grass. The dispatcher kept repeating that police were on their way, only minutes out. But to a terrified 13-year-old, minutes felt like forever. A shadow moved past her window. Samantha squeezed her eyes shut, tears slipping down her cheeks. She clutched the phone like a lifeline, whispering, "Please hurry, please hurry." Finally, the distant wail of sirens reached her ears. The footsteps outside stopped. Samantha dared to peek out her blinds again, and the figure was gone. Moments later, flashing lights painted the street, and 2 officers came to her door. They searched the yard, the street, even the woods behind her house. Nothing. Whoever had been there vanished the moment help arrived. When her parents returned, Samantha refused to let go of her mother, sobbing into her shoulder. The police traced the calls but couldn't track the exact source. They told her it might have been a local prank caller, but Samantha knew better. Someone had been watching, waiting, right outside her home. For weeks, she couldn't sleep unless her parents left every light in the house on. And even now, years later, every time the phone rings unexpectedly, Samantha's chest tightens, and she remembers that whisper. "I like watching you." Marcus was 17 when his parents decided to take a short weekend trip, leaving him to watch the house in their small town in Illinois. He didn't mind, he was tall, athletic, and convinced nothing could scare him. He spent most of that Saturday gaming online with friends, ordering pizza, and enjoying the freedom of not being told to clean his room. By midnight, the neighborhood was quiet, and Marcus was sprawled on the couch in the living room, scrolling through TikTok. That was when the dogs started barking. Their German Shepherd, Rex, was usually calm, rarely barking unless something was really wrong. But now he was standing at the sliding glass door to the backyard, growling low in his throat, his fur bristling. Marcus muted the TV, listening closely. At first, he heard nothing. Then came the faint crunch of footsteps in the yard. He swallowed hard, peering through the glass. Nothing but darkness. The motion light hadn't turned on, which calmed him for a second. Maybe Rex was just being jumpy. But then the sound came again, heavier, closer. The dog lunged at the door, snarling. Marcus's skin prickled. Someone was out there. He grabbed a flashlight and slid the back door open a crack, just enough to shine the beam into the yard. The light cut across the grass, revealing nothing but trees swaying in the night breeze. But then, at the very edge of the yard, the beam caught something, a man, crouched low, trying to stay hidden near the fence. His face was pale, his eyes catching the light before he ducked back into the shadows. Marcus's breath caught. He slammed the door shut and locked it, pulling the curtains closed. Rex barked wildly, pacing back and forth. Marcus grabbed his phone and called the police, his voice tight as he explained someone was in the yard. The dispatcher told him to stay inside, keep the doors locked, and wait. Marcus did just that, but as he hung up, his stomach dropped. A sound echoed from the front porch, the distinct creak of a step. Whoever had been in the yard was now at the front of the house. Marcus turned off the lights, crouching low with Rex beside him. The dog growled deep in his chest as shadows moved across the blinds. Marcus's pulse hammered in his ears. He could hear slow, deliberate footsteps on the porch, like someone pacing, deciding what to do. Then came a knock. Not a friendly knock, a slow, heavy thud that seemed to echo through the silent house. Marcus didn't move. Another knock followed, harder this time. "I know you're in there," a voice called softly. It was low, male, and chillingly calm. Rex barked furiously, throwing himself at the door, but Marcus held him back. He whispered to himself, "Cops are coming, just wait, just wait." But then the doorknob jiggled. Once. Twice. Then harder. The man was trying to open it. Marcus's hands shook as he gripped the baseball bat he'd pulled from the closet. His phone buzzed. It was the dispatcher again, telling him officers were 2 minutes out. But 2 minutes felt like a lifetime. Suddenly, the jiggling stopped. Silence. Marcus didn't know if that was better or worse. He held his breath, every muscle tense, listening. Then he heard it, the sound of a window sliding open. Panic shot through him. He darted toward the sound, Rex racing ahead, barking like mad. The window in the dining room was cracked open halfway, a hand pushing through. Marcus didn't think, he swung the bat hard, slamming it against the frame. The hand vanished instantly, retreating into the night. Rex snarled at the glass, teeth bared, ready to attack. A second later, red and blue lights flooded the street outside. The intruder bolted, his shadow flickering across the yard as 2 squad cars pulled up. Marcus collapsed onto the couch, clutching Rex, shaking from the adrenaline. The police searched the area but found no one. Only footprints in the mud beneath the window and a set of smudged fingerprints on the glass remained. One officer told Marcus it was probably a burglar targeting houses that looked empty. But Marcus couldn't shake the feeling the man had known he was home, that the taunting voice at the door wasn't about breaking in, but about scaring him. For weeks after, Marcus couldn't sit in that living room at night without Rex nearby. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle outside made his chest tighten. He learned something that night: no matter how tough you think you are, when someone wants to come into your home, the walls don't feel like protection, they feel like paper. It was early autumn in Oregon when 32-year-old Rachel experienced something she would never forget. She lived alone in a small rental house on the edge of town, tucked between tall pine trees and a winding gravel road. The quiet was something she loved. She worked long shifts as a nurse, so the solitude gave her peace. But sometimes, silence has a way of hiding things you don't want to notice. One chilly evening, Rachel returned home from work, kicked off her shoes, and poured herself a glass of wine. She lit a few candles, set her phone to charge, and curled up with a blanket in the living room. The wind rustled through the trees outside, and the occasional hoot of an owl punctuated the night. By 10 p.m., she was nodding off when she heard something strange, a faint thud upstairs. Her brow furrowed. She rarely went upstairs, she mostly lived on the first floor. The upstairs had 2 guest bedrooms and a storage space she hardly touched. She tried to brush it off, telling herself maybe it was the old house creaking. But then came another sound. A dragging noise, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. Rachel sat up straight, her heart pounding. She grabbed her phone and called her best friend, whispering about the noises. Her friend told her it was probably nothing, but Rachel couldn't shake the unease. She decided to check it out, flashlight in hand. The wooden stairs creaked loudly as she climbed, every step echoing in the silence. At the top, the hallway stretched into darkness. She clicked on the flashlight and swept it across the rooms. Everything looked normal, until she reached the last door. It was the storage room. The door was slightly open. Rachel's pulse quickened. She was certain she had left it closed. She nudged it open with her foot, shining the light inside. Boxes, old clothes, and stacked furniture filled the small space. But in the corner, something caught her eye. A blanket on the floor, crumpled, but not dusty like the rest of the room. It looked recently used.